Hey everybody, today let's see how Donald Trump is doing after about 1 week in office. It's very early, but this will give us a baseline for when we look at it in the future. So we're going to look at the aggregates, we'll take a look at an Emerson poll, and we'll also take a look at the direction of the country. So we'll start here on Real Clear Politics. And Trump just barely got into office. He's still putting things in place and getting things set up. And the honeymoon period could still be there, so I think it's probably going to be best if we wait 2, maybe 3 months before we see where things might settle. So right now in the aggregate, Trump is positive 4.1. That's 49.1 to 45. Now in this column, you can see the sample size, and all of them are at least 800. Some of them use registered voters, some of them use adults, some of them use likely voters like Rasmussen. And it's always important to keep in mind that some of these pollsters are going to have their own potential biases. So there's a big range here. Insider Advantage has Trump at positive 17, but it's important to note here that their polling dates were only January 20th. Other than that, Trump's best poll here is going to be from Emerson, and we're going to take a look at that in just a minute. And Trump's worst two polls here are going to be Reuters Ipsos, and Gallup have him at -1. So generally, this is better than where Trump was at in his first term. 8 years ago, he did not win the popular vote. Republicans were not exactly sure how he was going to govern yet, and that was a political bombshell at the time. So Trump never really had good favorables. So even seeing him with any kind of a positive rating right now, it's kind of uncharted territory. I've heard people say Trump is at the peak of his power and popularity, and I think that's true. He got the popular vote this time. He swept all the swing states. He's come into office and done a barrage of executive orders. I'm sure for the average person, they're going to like some of that. They're also going to have questions about other parts. And meanwhile, the base is going to love it, and the opposition is going to hate almost every second of it. So I almost had a hard time picturing Trump ever having a net favorability rating in the aggregate. It looks like right now that's happening, but it could be very short-lived. We'll see where it's at in another few weeks. Now, if Real Clear Politics is not your thing, we can do the same thing on 538. And here Trump is at plus 5.3. So not a whole lot of difference here. It's clear that Trump is more popular than not. And you could go down here and see which polls they factor into that aggregate. So it's always good to take a look at multiple sources. We'll do other ones in the future, but for right now, Real Clear Politics and 538, those are going to be the biggest ones, even though I hear a lot of people accuse them of having a certain bias. Now let's look in depth at this poll from Emerson. Usually Emerson has a fairly acceptable track record. They've got some misses like pretty much everybody else, but they're far from an overtly partisan pollster. So they've got Trump starting with a 49% approval and 41% disapproval. That's a net 8 positive. That's not bad at all. But as we look more into this poll, there could be something more hidden in the details. A big shock for me here is the change in optimism. A majority of voters, 52%, think the country is on the right track. Now we'll look at the aggregate of that at the end, but I'm stunned to see any pollster, even if it was a Republican-aligned pollster, showing a net right track rating. So again, Trump at 49 to 41, we've got 10% that are neutral, and that 41% disapproval is the lowest it's been in Emerson national polls dating back to his first term. That again underscores how Trump is kind of at the height of his popularity. I would have thought after the assassination attempt, that's when his popularity would have been sky high. There was not really much there after that, so this is even more surprising to see that it's happening now. Now they break it down here by age group, but the older you get, the less popular he is. 18 to 29 is at 46 approve, 38 disapprove. That's the age group that Trump did seem to make some gains on, which is typically seen as a group that favors the Democrats. 30 to 39 favor Trump, 47 to 39. 40 to 49-year-olds have a 49 to 38 rating. 50 to 59 have him at 52 to 34. That's Trump's best group yet. That's 18 points above water. But then it drops off. 60 to 69 are pretty much even. 49 approve, 48 disapprove. And 70 and up, it actually flips just slightly negative. 48 approve, 49 disapprove. Stereotypically, Republicans usually do better with older voters. Those voters usually come out and vote, especially in the midterms. It looks like Trump is doing his weakest with that age group. That could be a concern going forward. And then we've got the polling dates here of January 27th to the 28th. It was with registered voters, and the sample size is 1,000. And then we get to the right track, wrong track. Again, it's at 52% that think we're headed in the right direction. That is a significant shift from earlier this month when 67% said the country was on the wrong track, and only 33% said it's going in the right direction. I would expect it to shift given there's a new president. But given the polarization these days and the fact that Trump has just barely gotten into office, I would not expect it to be that different that quickly. But then they break it down by party. 21% of Democrats think we're headed in the right direction. 79% say we're on the wrong track. That makes sense. Biden is out of office. That's going to be in the red. Republicans, very bullish here. 87% think we're headed in the right direction. 14% on the wrong track. track. And independents, those are going to be key. 47% say right direction, 53% say wrong track. That to me seems more reasonable. With that group, I would expect Trump has some room to go even a little bit higher, and also he could obviously decline. Then we could go down here. It says earlier this month, 70% of Republicans felt the country was on the wrong track. Now 87% feel it's headed in the right direction. That is a staggering about face in just about 1 or 2 weeks. But with independents who say we're on the wrong track, that went from 69 down to 53. And with Democrats, they already thought we were on the wrong track at 62%, but now that shot up to 79. So even with Biden in office, it actually does not seem like Democrats were really all that enthused whatsoever. The top issues for voters are going to be the economy at 39%, immigration at 16, threats to democracy 15, healthcare 9%, and housing affordability clocks in at 6. Concern for immigration is higher among Republicans at 29, while concern for threats to democracy is highest among Democrats at 24. How about this one here about birthright citizenship? 45% support changing birthright citizenship so children of undocumented immigrants are not automatically granted citizenship, while 37% oppose changing the policy. 19% are neutral or have no opinion. Right now, that is something highly controversial. 69% of Republicans support ending it, 25% of Dems, and 38% of independents. So again, it is definitely polarizing. My guess is if you were starting from scratch, more people than not would be against birthright citizenship. But given the way it is now, that one might not be going away anytime soon. Then it says voters are split on the Trump administration policy that reverses a 2011 law and allows ICE agents to enter schools and churches to conduct searches and make arrests. 45% are opposed, 42% are supportive. A majority of voters, 56%, support a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants in the country, while 24% oppose it. Hispanic voters are most supportive of that pathway at 63%, followed by white voters at 57% and black voters at 50%. And then the rest of this is about the Super Bowl. So I think Emerson asked a few good questions. I wish they asked others. Right now, there's some cautious optimism for the new administration, but I think voters are going to be ready to voice their concerns if it looks like the administration is overstepping its bounds. Now let's move on here to Gallup. And Gallup paints a little bit of a different story here for the new administration. They have Trump actually underwater by 48 to 47. And this table covers every president going back to Eisenhower. And according to this, the only thing lower than this Trump term is Trump's first term, where he was even at 45-45. And these dates here indicate that this pretty much just covers about the first week they were in office. Above Trump here was Ronald Reagan back in 81. Even Joe Biden back in 21 had a 57 to 37% rating. So Biden definitely did have a fairly significant honeymoon period. It came crashing down, but he definitely was way better than Trump according to Gallup. Gallup is usually also fairly respected, but it's also just one source. They were factored into the aggregates on Real Clear Politics at 538. So it's early. I don't think this means much. We're going to have to see what happens. But finally, back on Real Clear Politics, let's take a look at the direction of country. And a few of these cover before Trump was sworn into office. That's going to be these three here on the bottom. The top ones are since Trump got into office. And that means the overall spread here is underwater by about 20 points, 19.8. But you can see here again, the Emerson poll shows it at +4. That's way above all these other ones that are still double digits in the red. So maybe the Emerson poll is an outlier. Maybe the Gallup poll is. It's tough to say. All we can do is look at the data and see what changes over time. But if we go down here and take a look at the graph, you can see here over the past week, it has dramatically improved. And it's only going to go up even further once they stop factoring in those three polls that were conducted before Trump got back in office. But you can see which way the trajectory is heading. And you can see this graph goes all the way back to before 2010. This is when Obama got into office at the beginning of 2009. That was pretty much the last time we saw anything close to a right direction in the aggregate. Ever since then, the polarization has kicked in and there's a lot of dissatisfaction out there with voters. The last time it really got close was here in 2021. It was right after Biden got into office and during that honeymoon period. But after about 6 or 7 months, that's when Biden's rating shot totally in the other direction. Then we had the Supreme Court decision on abortion, and the gap here was very wide all the way through the rest of Biden's term. Now, back in the first Trump term, there was again a lot of polarization out there. But before COVID hit, there was a lot more positive sentiment about the economy. And you could see, even though there's a clear majority that say we're on the wrong track, right direction did manage to get over 40%. And according to this, it did look like there was more satisfaction during that first Trump term, again before COVID hit. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what any of this current data means? The point is, it's a brand new era. There's going to be early optimism for the new administration, but I think we all want to know, how long is that going to last and how widespread is it going to be? Anything could happen. We'll follow it as we go, but that's an early look at how Trump is doing after his first week in office. So let me know in the comments. Are you surprised to see how Trump is doing? Do you think his rating is too high? Do you think it's too low? How do you think it's going to change after all the executive orders? And what do you think is going to come up that might affect his rating one way or the other? Do you think the honeymoon period is going to be short-lived, or do you think Trump could defy the odds? And what about this dramatic change in the right direction? How long do you think that's going to last? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.